Bring you rolling coverage of the funeral at Westpark Cemetery. There is our politics team there, including political editor Mzwandile Mbeje, reporter Kenny Mapanga, and our anchor Vuyo Mvoko. But for now, let's go to Ms. Duarte's home, where we find SABC senior political reporter Samgele Masego, who has been tracking developments there and has been speaking to various people. Samgele, one of the things that has been coming out from where you are has been the difficulty that the ANC is going to experience now as it heads towards conference, particularly looking at the regional conferences where even the adoption of credentials became a critical issue, and that is where she would have been needed the most.
Indeed, Bongiwe, the ANC's national chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, is saying that Jessie Duarte passes away at a time when the African National Congress really needed her to be there at the helm of the SGO at Luthuli House, knowing how difficult it has become for the organization to adopt credentials at its various provincial, regional, and ultimately going to its national 55th national conference in December. Gwede Mantashe speaking of how Jessie Duarte was very steadfast, how she was very frank, how she was not shy to speak her own mind and speak her own views, which was also echoed by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, a former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, when Jessie Duarte was an ambassador to Mozambique here within the African continent, saying they worked extensively together. And Charles Ngakula and Nosivuya Mapisa Ngakula saying that she was not afraid to even be on her own and being isolated by various factions within the ANC. You look at the recent current contemporary politics within the governing party, how she was being castigated, how she was being attacked and harassed by some within the radical economic transformation faction within the ANC, particularly on her stance on her, how those leaders of the ANC should be conducting themselves as they are under immense pressure within the governing party, some of them having been suspended. You look at how many of the ANC leaders from all factions and all perspectives have spoken so glowingly about the legacy of Jessie Duarte, but also she does not come with no controversy as you look at how her son was entangled in allegations of state capture and corruption with his links to the Gupta brothers and the sort of criminal network that they ran in the country as exposed by the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. But she was also had a very contentious relationship, Bongiwe, with the media fraternity, at times shouting, walking out of interviews, speaking to journalists, and was very temperamental at times, particularly on contentious issues that she may have agreed with or not agreed with. Which one comes to mind is how she treated Harja Omarji on their interview around e-tolls, and how she literally threatened to walk out of that interview that she had with Harja many years ago on the issue at e-tolls, only years to find out that she actually agreed with the view that South Africans and residents of Gauteng must not be made to pay for these e-tolls. So she was a person who was very independently minded, person who spoke her mind, was not afraid to voice out her views. You look at the top 6 meeting that the ANC top 6 had with former President Jacob Zuma, how she expressed her views about the judiciary, how she expressed her views about former Deputy Chief Justice and now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who's the State Capture Commission of Inquiry's chairperson, and how she says former President Jacob Zuma was being ill-treated by the commission.
You even think back to those moments, Samgele, when she even spoke about how there would be certain rulings that go a certain way if they're in the North Gauteng High Court, and rulings that would go another way in the South Gauteng High Court. So certainly not holding back when it comes to some of, what she talks about. But another, issue that comes up when one thinks of the state, for example, of the ANC right now, are the structures. And these are, the structures that some say that she was very critical when it comes to the formation and also keeping them healthy. One even thinks of the moment when, the Youth League under Colin Maile, for example, and she had to get involved in some of the issues there.
Indeed, Jessie Duarte had to get involved in a number of contentious issues within the African National Congress. Particularly, I know when there were factions within the ANC Youth League and the disbandment of the Youth League, you go to the contentious issues that were there in provincial structures, such as KwaZulu-Natal, the battle between the likes of Thandukolo Sabela, Kwazimshengu, and Virus Ngampalala, who was the provincial treasurer of the ANC Youth League, through issues of factionalism, as TK Ngiza eloquently put it in saying that whenever the ANC Youth League leaders within the ANC felt as if they were not wanted in the ANC, it would be Jessie Duarte who would all call them together, engage them, says, no, don't stop fighting for what you believe in. Continue fighting. Yes, the ANC may have rejected you this time around, but never ever give in, never give up. Continue fighting, because it is you who will inherit the African National Congress one day. So she had a very close-knit relationship with the members of the ANC Youth League from all particular perspectives of the Youth League. Many of them have actually described her as someone who has held the ANC together in very, very difficult periods, particularly which one that comes to mind is the run-up to the 54th National Conference of the ANC in December, NASREC 2017, how the ANC was so divided and fractured along two perspectives, those supporting President Cyril Ramaphosa and those supporting Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, how it was so fractious in the governing party that she and Gwede Mantashe still had to maintain and bring and hold the party together. In fact, now there is activity now outside the family home, as you can see my colleague Chulo Monare showing you those visuals, Nomvula Mukonyane and Daphne Nkosi, who is a businesswoman, a very close friend of Dr. Nkosazana, of Jessie Duarte. They are leaving the family home and now going towards the West Park Cemetery, signaling that the remains of Jessie Duarte will soon be leaving the house. As well, as you can see Nomvula Mukonyane getting into her vehicles as she is going to the cemetery now at West Park. The ANC leadership, led by its president, are still inside the family home. The president's vehicle, President Cyril Ramaphosa, are also getting ready to ferry the president home, as the Treasurer General's vehicles also come close to take the Treasurer General to the West Park Cemetery. We also do know that Lindiwe Sisulu, also Minister of Tourism, ANC NEC member, she is also inside the family home. Her vehicles are also now lining up to take the various leaders of the African National Congress to the West Passage. Multiple voices, which is what the ANC, when the likes of Smuts Ngonyama were still within the African National Congress, still the spokesperson of the ANC, they used to always say, when the likes of the late Jackson Mthembu, the son of with the Witbank area of Mpumalanga, what they would always say, that it's one message, multiple voices. The ANC suspended Secretary General Ace Magashule, speaking of how they had a very close working relationship with Jessie Duarte. As you can see now, the hearse leaving the family home, going towards the West Park Cemetery. This is ultimately the last ride of Jessie Yasmin Duarte. President Ramaphosa walking behind the hearse. Treasurer General Paul Mashatile, National Chairperson Gwede Mantashe, led by the sons, the family, the brothers, the sisters of Jessie Duarte. As you can also see, the various community members, family, whom have also come to pay their last respects, as this is ultimately the last ride for Jessie Duarte as she leaves her home in Observatory for the very last time to go to a final resting place, closing a chapter of many years of struggle against non-racialism, against gender-based violence, a struggle for gender equality, a struggle against tribalism, a struggle for equality, a struggle for economic emancipation of the downtrodden, the poor, the marginalized, a struggle against injustice, no matter how it muted and reared its ugly head. As you can see, a very emotional ANC President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, Treasurer General Paul Mashatile, as the ANC President leads the ANC leadership to the final resting place of Jessie Duarte. He is accompanied and alongside the provincial chairperson of the ANC, Panyaza Lusufi, and the various leaders of the ANC now leaving as the president gets into his vehicle to go and deliver the eulogy at the funeral service, Category 2 state funeral, declared by the President of the Republic, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, the ANC in Gauteng had to cancel its 2-day induction. I'm now going to go to the Minister of Tourism, ANC NEC member, who is also very distraught as well. Minister Sisulu, condolences to you, to the ANC. Just your views on the legacy of Jessie Yasmin Duarte.
She was just one outstanding woman. Stood her ground at all times, very disciplined, very principled. We've lost the one person in the organization who was able to, at all times, take the lead, even in the most difficult times, even when it wasn't the preferred route. She was your height, but she stood out like a giant. And she was a personal friend. I inherited her from my mom. She was my mom's aide at all times there for her. My mom inherited her from my brother Zwelakhe, so she's almost like a part of our family. She's always been there for us. And I was invited to Russia by the Minister of Tourism. I took the opportunity to try and get medication for her in Russia. And I succeeded, but I arrived too late. I arrived back home too late. We will miss Jessie. I don't know if anybody else would have the qualities that she has. And you would know that, Samgel.
Indeed, Minister Sisulu. She was a very passionate person. We had our differences, but we buried the hatchet. At times, we'd even gossip about you ANC leaders and the things going on within the country, the governing party. She was very motherly. Condolences to you once again. How would you want the younger generation to remember her?
Jessie got into the organization at a very young age. And because she was one of the youngest, she automatically became my mother's secretary, because my mother was one of the presidents of the UDM. But she was just self-driven. She didn't need anybody to conscientize her, so to speak. She knew what was right instinctively. And she was, for me and my family, she was one of us.
Condolences to you, Minister, and to the ANC family as we let you go and lay your comrade to rest. The last ride of Jessie Duarte from Observatory in Johannesburg, former MEC of Education in the province, former ambassador to Mozambique, now the late and former Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, who leaves her organization at a time where it's preparing for its 55th National Conference in December at Nasrec. National Chairperson Gwede Mantashe saying she leaves at a time when her organization really needs her the most, at a time where the ANC is pulling in different directions. One leader of the ANC we spoke to saying that she leaves at a time when they needed her the most, to all bring them together so that the factions are dealt with. As you can see, the president of the ANC's motorcade as it leaves Observatory to lay Jessie Duarte to rest. Bongiwa.
And Samgel, of course, as that motorcade then leaves the home, one of the things that we've also seen has been different conversations that you've also had, with even some of the family members who are talking about how difficult of a day this is. And we do know that this particular motorcade is headed towards West Park Cemetery, where we know the funeral service is going to be getting underway. Let's leave it there with Samgel for now and head then to the West Park Cemetery with, of course, my colleague Onati is standing by to bring us the latest on that one.
Cemetery. The family did say that at exactly 10:30 1, they will be leaving the home of Jessie Duarte and heading towards the West Park Cemetery.